ಕೌಸಲ್ಯ ಪ್ರಾವಿಡೆನ್ಸ್ ಸ್ಟೋರು ಮುಂದೆ ಕೋಳಿಕೋ ಎಂದಿತು. ಮತ್ತೊಂದು ಇರುಳ ಕಳೆದು ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿಗೆ ಬೆಳಗಾಯಿತು. ಚಿಕ್ಕಪೇಟೆ ದೊಡ್ಡಪೇಟೆ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ಟು ಜಯನಗರ ಮಲ್ಲೇಶ್ವರ ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲೂ ಜನಸಂಚಾರ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಬಿರಿಯಾಯಿತು.
My name is Sindhu, Sreenivasa Murthy. I am now an actor, writer and director. I actually started off with theatre when I was like 16 years old. So that was my foray into arts. I haven't done anything close to like films in terms of like my studies. I studied like BCom and I did my company secretaryship, and I was very removed from this world, and nobody in my family is even remotely related to this industry. I think my time in theatre taught me a lot. I've learned a lot on the job, which is just observing. Like first I was just an actor, so everything I've learned as an actor is on the job. The discipline, the way you learn your lines, the way you figure out your body language, etc. Everything. And then I used to observe directors, and I thought to myself, okay, when I'm like 40, 50 years old, maybe I'll direct my first play. I'd never really thought I'd be like directing films one day. It just so happened that, I was in Bombay pursuing acting, and that's when I took up a screenwriting course. And that screenwriting course led me to write my first film with my co-writer Kanan Gill, which is Aachar and Co. And we just wrote it as an exercise. We didn't really think about like making it. It just so happened that things started falling into place. Creative producers in Bombay were really interested in the project. And then I found my producers and the film is made. And rest is history. First of all, I feel like I'm an old soul stuck in like this young body. I've always been interested in history and the way that history has shaped us today. For example, the women in the 60s broke so many taboos silently, like we spoke about. Like it was a quiet feminist movement, and people were breaking stereotypes, both genders actually, and more so women being educated and like coming into like workspaces in the 60s. They broke so many taboos that's the reason why I'm here, sitting here in front of you today giving an interview, because they've made that space for me, and it was a lot easier for me to come here than what it was for them.
Uma, neen adge maadu. Leela, neen batte hogi. Vijaya, neen paatre toli. Gauri, neen mane sarsu. Ei, nee kasa gudso.
ನೀನ್ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀಯಾ?
ಲಂಡನ್ ಹೋಗಿ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಬಂಗ್ಲೆಲಿ ಇರ್ತೀನಿ.
I think the word feminism and feminist itself is so misconstrued. It at the end of the day only means equality of the genders, and very few people kind of are aware of this, because the minute you ask them, are you a feminist, they're like, no, but I believe in equality. But I'm like, it's the same thing. And I think one of the larger things that has led to us being so imbalanced in our lives in terms of gender roles is, I think, because of patriarchy. Because it started with that somehow men are superior, women are relegated to like, household chores, and they're not educated, and they're not like, fit for workspaces, etc. So it started there.
ನಾವಿನ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಮನೇಲೇ ಇರಬೇಕಾ? ಅಡ್ಗೆನೂ ನಾವೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾ? ಈ ಚಕ್ಕು ಚಡ್ಡಿ ಕೂಡ ನಾವೇ ಒಗಿಬೇಕಾ? ಅದನ್ನು ನಾವೇ ತೊಳಿಬೇಕಾ? ಮನೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹೇಗೋ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನನ್ನ ಮದುವೆ ಯಾರು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ? ನಿನ್ನ ಮದುವೆ ಕೂಡ ನಾವೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾ?
So the film tackles primarily the theme of patriarchy and how that has now affected all the women and the men in the household. So, yes, very anti-feminist is the dad. For example, he doesn't believe that the girls have any power other than just like getting married and having babies. But then we also wanted to show other male characters who are feminists, like Raghu and Jaggu, both brothers actually are feminists, and they're the ones who are like, no, you have to get educated, you should take your education seriously, you should go to work, you should become financially independent. He's saying all of this to his sisters, and that is so progressive of him, even though he's subject to patriarchy himself and he's trying to battle that pressure himself. He also sees his sisters as an equal, and that they need to sort of step up, and they can't hide behind the garb of patriarchy and be like, okay, I'm not going to do anything. In fact, Suma, the character, we thought, okay, why does it always have to be that the men against the women in terms of like feminist debates, right? It's not even about that. It can be a woman against herself, because she's so conditioned to think that I am worth nothing but getting married and having babies, and I should not be doing anything else. Either it comes from a very high place that, oh, I shouldn't be doing anything else, I don't want to be doing this menial job, or it's like, oh, I'm not worth anything and I should not be trying out anything, right? So it puts you in either of these brackets. Suma herself was one of those. She's like, who will marry me if I work? Who will marry me? Because back then in the 60s, they did not want working wives or working daughter-in-laws. So it was a concern, and she didn't want to do certain things because she thought she will not be eligible for marriage then.
ಹುಡುಗಿ ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಯಾರು ಮದ್ವೆ ಆಗ್ತಾರೆ?
ಸುಮಾ, ಮದುವೆ ಆಗೋದೇನು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಸಾಧನೆನಾ?
So I feel like patriarchy is ingrained so heavily within us, and we've conditioned to believe that that is how my worth is going to be determined. And that is what we also figure out within the film, right? Like her brother pushes her to, like, you know, go get a job, become independent, and she sees the fruits of it by the end of the film, where she sees that she's able to claim her agency, and, you know, she has now freedom of choice, freedom of, like, just to exist in her own way, you know. Even if she's unmarried, by the end of it, she feels like she's, you know, it's a worthwhile life. It's not like it's worthless in any way. So I feel like we try to also sort of switch the characters in how they behave. It's also that men can be feminists, and we want them to be, and this is what a feminist man looks like. And sometimes how women can just be like their own enemies because of conditioning, and how they can change the conditioning also and do something for themselves. So I think that's what we attempted to do, and I hope it has worked.
ತಡವಾಗಿ ಬಂದು ಕೂಗಿದನು ಹಾಲಿನವನು, ಕೆಚ್ಚಲಲಿ ಕರೆದ ಬೆಚ್ಚನೆಯ ಹಾಲು ತುಂಬಿಸಲಿ ಕಾಮಧೇನು, ಅದುವರೆಗೂ ನೋಡೋಣ ಹೊಸ ಸುದ್ದಿಯೇನು.
So I think finding the right location for the film was, I think, the most important thing. We couldn't obviously shoot in Bangalore because there's so many new buildings, new vehicles all around. It would be extremely chaotic to control that. So we found our safe haven in Mysore.
ಬಾಗಿಲನು ತೆರೆದು ರಂಗೋಲಿ ಎಳೆದು ಸುತ್ತಿದರು ತುಳಸಿ ಕಟ್ಟೆ, ಮನೆ ದೇವರನ್ನು ಮನದಲ್ಲಿ ನೆನೆದು ಬೆಳಗಿದರು ಆರತಿ ತಟ್ಟೆ, ಮುಗಿದಾಗ
And thankfully we found a house thanks to the University of Mysore. It was their quarters, and it was not occupied by anyone, so we got to, like, really take over the place and give it a complete makeover. You know, we wanted to ensure that we got the colors right, and there's something very distinct about the 60s. It's this very grey blue color on the doors and the windows that you just cannot get your mind out of. So we repainted the entire house, and we wanted red oxide flooring, and thankfully the house had red oxide flooring. And then of course we had a great art team which was led by Mr. Vishwas Kashyap, and our creative producer Danila as well did a lot of research, and then they also elevated the place further. So we had to practically build new slabs and have new mesh coming in for the windows, because there's something so unique about these smaller details that when they're there you feel like it's real. It's, you know, even the grill work on the windows had to be a specific way so that it feels like it's a 60s house. I would say a lot of research went into the art, the music, and how we can probably also make it more cohesive. Yeah.
ಕಣ್ಣೊಜ್ಜಿ ಕುಳಿತ ಮನೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳೆಲ್ಲ ಮೇಲೆದ್ದರಾಗ, ಸಾಲಾಗಿ ನಿಂತು ಬಚ್ಚಲಿನ ಮುಂದೆ ಸಿಗಲೆಂದು ಜಾಗ, ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಚಳಿಗೆ ಬಿಸಿ ನೀರ ಸ್ನಾನ ಮುಗಿಯದು ಅಷ್ಟು ಬೇಗ, ಮನೆ ತುಂಬ ಜನರಿದ್ದರೆ ಇದೇ ನಿತ್ಯ ರಾಗ.
So I think it was really fun, sort of like every day when we would just sort of get into costume itself and then just go on set, we would feel like we were in another world completely. And our producer, Mrs. Ashwini Puneet Rajkumar, she came on set with her family, who were slightly older family members, and they came in and they're like, oh my god, this is just like our house, this is just like how our grandmom's house is. Or it was so special to us that, you know, we had that sort of almost instant sort of feedback that this is working, and that was special.
sa sa pa 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 magari ga sa pa 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 gama bari dari dari da pa maga gama bari dari dari da gama bari dari dari da pa maga gama bari dari dari da sa ni la la ni da pa maga pa magari sa 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 la 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 la.
So the music is something that is extremely special to me in this film, and also because Bindu Malini has created it, someone I truly admire. So for the film, I was looking for something that is very rooted in Carnatic classical music. Because 60s, if you're going to pay a tribute to the era, we need to be very specific. Again, this is part of the research. So I didn't want to just go for the most popular music director in the city, but also somebody who has a very strong backing of Carnatic classical. And I had heard Bindu Malini's music in Aruvi, and I had loved it. And we want to do a rendition of the Suprabhata, in no way disrespecting the Suprabhata, but we're just going to change the lyrics, but everything else needs to sort of like, remain similar to the original. It was because we knew that 60s Bangalore would only wake up to the Suprabhata, because there's only the radio, and the AIR used to play Suprabhata every morning. So it was so quintessential, and in fact that worked in our favor, because when we released the song prior to the movie's release itself, it went viral in WhatsApp groups, and so many people of like my parents' generation, they were instantly just taken back to the 60s. I struggle to understand when characters suddenly break into song and dance, and a full-blown choreography in the middle of a movie. I find it very unbelievable. So I wanted to see if I can do that, but in a more believable way, right? So we were thinking, okay, what if these girls and sisters are just singing in the kitchen? Because it was a thing back then, we don't do that anymore. But back then, it was only the radio. Either they sing along with the radio, or they all had like some sort of music lessons that they used to take. So they used to sing amongst themselves. So we thought, okay, while making the pickle, the sisters can sing along. But then it cannot abruptly break into like somebody brings a veena and a harmonium and starts singing. We were like, okay, let's use the kitchen utensils and create like an a cappella, and make it as realistic as possible. So that's why even the girls, they're not performing like, all out and, as in a usual song with heavy choreography. It is very simple choreography that would feel very believable. Something that I have realized through my journey of making my first film is that making your film is not the hardest part and not the most important part. The most important part is marketing it and getting the audience to watch it. Because you can make a film, but ultimately you need to put it out there for people to watch it. And because most of us have that intention to share it with the people, to touch them in some sort of way, whether it's through our characters, our story. So the ultimate sort of goal we're all looking at is so that we have an audience to watch it and to hopefully appreciate it. So marketing today has become extremely important. See, earlier it was very easy, you could do on-ground marketing. Today, where are you going to go and find your audience? Where? You don't know who your audience or where they're going to be anymore. It's not that simple. It's so populated, the city. How do you target them? No, honestly, that was the biggest surprise. I have to admit that, the Friday before the release, the Thursday, we were in Mysore. We just finished a premiere show there. And I was looking at Book My Show like as though it was Instagram. I was like just scrolling and wondering, why isn't anything turning orange? Why isn't anything like fast filling yet? I was so nervous. And I thought I'm just going to hide under the bed, when it releases on the Friday. But then I was like, okay, customary, we'll have to do the first day, first show, and sort of just ensure that, we show up for ourselves if nobody else, right? So, so we really wanted to do the first day, first show. And we went to the theatres and we went to Orion and it was full. And I was quite happy. I was like, okay, this is good. And then when I went to like another theatre, just as a visit, it was about half full. This is on a Friday morning. And I thought, okay, this is great. I guess, this is good enough, right? And by evening, I think something had changed. Like the film just picked up through word of mouth. And Saturday, Sunday, we were sold out. And the best part is that as an exercise, I went to almost like 3 to 4 theaters in a day just to like talk to people and find out what they liked, what they didn't like, etc. And what really came through was most of them was like, you know, the characters, they were like, they reminded me of my uncle or my aunt or my niece, or my nephew is like this, or my mom is like this, or my grandmother is like this. People really took to the characters as their own family members, and they treated the story as their own. And I think it really touched people as though it was their own story, and that's what really worked for the film. It was so simple, and it was so like mimicking everyday life that it felt extremely relatable to people, and that's what really connected, and that's what worked. Stories but with heart have been coming out, like you mentioned Daredevil Mustafa, or even Mr. Mansoure's work with 1920-21 or Act 1975, or Nati Charami. All of these were smaller films, but they had so much more to tell outside of your regular commercial plot lines, that then it gave us a lot of hope, the like young ones, to be like, okay, we can experiment with stories here. Like there's slowly a space that's being created for like alternative subjects that don't have to have a hero and a heroine, and it could be about other themes. And we were like that. Kannada film industry was like that. Like back in the day, we had some of the best films that were coming out, Mr. Puttana, Kanagal stories, or any of those, right? So many beautiful films. And we kind of somewhere lost the way in between. And I feel like we're getting back on track now. And even with, let's say, what Rishabh Shetty, Rakshit Shetty, Rajbi Shetty are doing with their films as well. Such great storytelling in the first place. And also what really changed was PRK Productions. A production house that came up solely to encourage new talent, new filmmakers. See, now that changed the game, I would say, because a lot of people suddenly now felt that they could get produced. It's not just about now writing a film and being talented or but the process of getting it made now felt possible, because even now there are like very few handful of producers who are okay to take that chance and the risk with like new filmmakers, with smaller stories, with but with like different themes, etc. And also what really helped was during the pandemic we were exposed to such good stories. We were exposed to films that we didn't understand the language of, but we really connected to it because it was so rooted. It was so rooted that despite the language, like Malayalam films, Tamil films became extremely popular, and I was binge watching them myself, right? Kumbalangi Nights, or Helen. All of these are such gems. And then I think that sort of kind of opened up content to people, that content can be this amazing and this good, and that it's working. People want it. So then producers also sort of like maybe are more confident knowing that people will watch it if it's made. And look at Kantara, right? Kantara is so rooted in a specific part of Karnataka with its rituals and etc. But people from all over India have loved it. Because I truly believe that when the setting is extremely rooted, but the story is global, you have a winner in your hands. So you should really not try to like make a story that will be like, oh, I'm gonna like keep it vague so that everybody can like relate to it. No, that's not the answer. Don't keep the setting vague. Keep it extremely specific. You just do a story that is so rooted in its culture, so rooted in one place even, but the story automatically will draw people in. I think people are forgetting that specificity and can actually connect more to the audience than like keeping it like trying to go pan India, you know what I mean? Yeah. That we've come such a long way, but we still have a long way to go, because I'm only the very few female directors in the Kannada film industry right now. Like there are a handful of them and I can count them. So I think we have a long way to go. I feel like we need to find a more equal footing in society, and it's an ongoing process, and we shall get there.
Tam, ta-tam, ta-tam.